episode of Monique's TV. You guys already know what we are about to do today. So we are currently doing the series titled Young Black Female Achievers. And today I have an amazing guest, a beautiful one that I've known for a while. I would just call her a superstar, and I'm not going to take away her shine by introducing her. She's going to tell you everything about herself. She's going to tell you her story, and I trust that you guys are going to have an interesting time watching this video and also listening to her. Without wasting any more time, welcome with me, my guest, Mrs. TOFUNMI Adeyemi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Moyo. It's great to see you again after so long. And
yeah, it's so beautiful to see you too. And thank you for accepting to be here to motivate my audience, or should I say God's audience? Yeah, because
absolute pleasure.
This is a divine, yeah, it's a divine idea, and I'm happy that it's coming to light, and you're one of the lights. So please feel free to share your story, and yeah, we are here for you. So the first question, of course, is for you to introduce yourself to us. We want to know about you. We want to hear from you. So who is TOFUNMI Adeyemi?
Okay, my name is TOFUNMI, as you've already said. Young woman, a lawyer, lover of God, come from a Christian family. My parents and 4 siblings. I'm married. Been married for a few years now. I enjoy law, actually, so I enjoy being a lawyer. I'm also passionate about teaching and mentoring mostly young lawyers. Something else I also really enjoy doing is I'm big on education, and so because of that, I volunteer with a nonprofit that is focused on providing support, providing education to mostly children from underserved communities. What else do I like to do? Okay, in my spare time, I actually enjoy cooking. I like trying out new food. I like exploring new places through travel. And fun fact actually about food, I write Google reviews for restaurants. So I would go out, eat, and I have a pseudonym that I use to write Google reviews. I actually checked how many views I've gotten so far recently, and it was over 50,000. So yeah, stuff I like doing.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so you did mention that you are a lawyer, you love to teach and mentor, you volunteer with nonprofits.
Yep.
I think there's still something you are yet to tell my audience, which is something that is really fascinating. Something that really inspires me as well, even though we are like peers. You haven't told my audience that you are qualified to practice law in various countries. Please talk about that.
Oh, I was going to get to that at some point, but yes, I am. You're correct. I am qualified to practice as a lawyer in Nigeria, which is the first place I got qualified to practice, and then in New York, which happened right after grad school, and then now most recently, in Ontario, by virtue of the fact that I relocated to Canada a few years ago. So yes, I'm qualified to practice in all 3 places, and I've had the opportunity to work in 2 of those 3 places as well.
Amazing, guys. This is really amazing for me. So if you need an attorney to help you with anything in New York, TOFUNMI is qualified. If in Canada, she's qualified. And if in Nigeria, she's more than qualified. So that's amazing. I really love that. So I think you already answered the next question, but you can just shed more light on it. Tell me about your background, where you grew up, maybe your state of origin, your family, how they have shaped you to become who you are today. Just anything you want to say about your background that might inspire someone listening to you.
Okay. So about me, I already mentioned that I was born into a Christian family, grew up with my family in Lagos, Nigeria, lived most of my life in Lagos. Traditional family, parents, 4 siblings. I have 3 older sisters and a younger brother, and I grew up with them. My parents raised us as Christians, so there was a lot of emphasis around faith in God, trusting Jesus. We went to Sunday school every Sunday.
Wow.
Or things like, you ask my parents for things and my dad would say things like, oh, just pray to God and trust God that God will provide. So, I mean, there's a lot of discussions, or there was a lot of centering around faith in our upbringing and in my upbringing. And this really like just shaped the foundation of my faith in Christ, which is basically the anchor of my life. Another thing that my parents really emphasized growing up was just academic excellence. And to be honest, at the time, I thought they were just like stressing us. My dad would say things like, oh, why don't I need to come first? Or how many A's did you get?
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, sometimes I have to go to school and come back. Like, what's all this stress about getting A's and coming first? But now that I'm older, I fully understand, the importance of it, because education is just such a powerful and transformative tool. And, for me personally, it has opened me up to so many opportunities. I mean, both of us, at least we both have experiences where, as far as I know, it was through our education that we got there. Our meeting at Lukanoye Bode was definitely through like us having good education, good grades from university, and then us like going to HLS, to Harvard Law School, for our masters at the same time as well, was just based on the foundation of the good education we got. So for me, and it has opened so many other opportunities for me, and I understand that. I'm also very blessed to have like super, super supportive siblings. My older and younger siblings, they constantly inspire me to be the best version of myself. I think one other thing that I should actually mention about my parents is that even though we were 4 girls, right, for most of our lives, because my brother is younger and quite a few years younger than me, they never like allowed us to believe that being female or our gender was like a limit to achieving anything. So growing up, there was never discussion around, oh, you can never be this in future because you're a woman, or oh, you need to like sort of reduce how you talk, or sort of conduct yourself in a certain way because you're a woman as against being a man. And so for me, by the time I like got into the outside world and I was sort of more exposed to like all the narratives around like gender stereotypes and gender limitations, for me it was so strange, because there were not things I was brought up with the consciousness of. And I think I was also blessed, like which is why I say I was blessed, because by the time I got to know of those things, I was already fully set, and I already had my confidence based on how my parents raised us. And so I would say those are the 2 key things, or the key things that sort of shaped my upbringing.
Great. Yeah. So from what you said, trust in Jesus, which is your faith, you believe in God, your parents giving you good education and, raising you the right way have been very helpful in shaping who you are today. So yeah, that sort of answers the next question, but I'm still going to ask you the question anyway. Sure. So how did you get to your current position, and what steps did you take to get there?
Sure. I'm happy to share. And I think I mentioned earlier that I'm a senior associate attorney at one of the big 4 firms in Canada.
Yeah.
And the only way, honestly, and I don't mean to sound cliche, but frankly, the only way I can describe how I got to my current position, or the summary of how I'll describe how I got to my current position, is really by a combination of accidents and divine arrangements.
Accidents. I like that.
I will give some context to that. I currently practice in an area called US business immigration. Okay. Basically, what I do is support large US companies with like hiring foreign skilled workers to work for them in the US.
Okay. Wow.
Right? Through basically specialized programs that are offered by the US to hire foreign workers in the US. So I support these businesses, support the workers right from when they're hired, to help them sort of transition legally to the US. So basically doing all of the required applications to the regulator, doing all of the filing, supporting them all the way to, more often than not, becoming permanent residents in the US.
Wow.
And why I say it's by divine arrangement is because the only time I started doing that was when I came to Canada. Prior to being in Canada, I was in Nigeria at another big law firm where I was doing corporate and commercial practice. And I mean, life in Nigeria was great, it was nice.
Yeah.
And at some point, I would frankly say in early 2020, my husband and I decided that we're going to relocate to Canada. And that meant, I had to start thinking what was going to become of my career after relocating. So that involved doing some research, asking some questions. So on one hand, and one thing I always do is when I'm trying to go into something new, I try to find somebody who has experience doing that thing, and I start asking them questions. And so I identified a number of, mostly my peers actually, who I knew were either in Canada or on their way to Canada and had started doing the relicensing process or the requalification process. And one thing I discovered was, the famous 2020 was the famous COVID year, right? So sometime in the middle of 2020, we found out that all part of the requalification exams are going to be offered online. And I thought, you know what, it's COVID, I'm bored. I might as well start these exams. At the time, I didn't know exactly when I was moving, but I just thought, let me just start doing these exams at this point. So for me, it was being proactive about that. The other step was researching what kinds of jobs I could do when I was in Canada. And frankly, at the time, and I think I even still had my notes because I made notes on, my research, was to find legal adjacent jobs, because at the time I had no idea that I could work as an attorney in Canada based on my qualifications at the time. And so I was looking for jobs and I saw a role. I reached out to, which was quite audacious of me, but I tend to do that a lot. I reached out to the managing partner of the firm. I didn't even reach out to the person who posted the role on LinkedIn or anything. I just found the email of the managing partner of the firm, sent her an email, and I told her, hi, I'm interested in this job. I want to get, I would like to, join your firm and do this work. I think it was a paralegal role, basically a legal adjacent role anyways. And she read my resume, replied, and just said, I don't think this role is good enough for you. And I don't have anything else to offer you. So I'm just going to refer you to someone that I think can help you. So she referred me to somebody who was really amazing to me, helped review my CV, spoke to me about places I should look, how I should look, the steps I should take. And so sometime in January, so this was towards the end of 2020. So sometime in early January, at this time, I decided I was relocating to Canada in February. In January, I just thought, you know what, let me reconnect with this lady. Let me actually thank her, because I was truly grateful for the introduction she made, because it also led me to meet other people in the legal space in Canada. So I sent her a simple email just telling her, thank you. I appreciate that you introduced me to this person. I'm truly grateful. And then I forgot about it, right? The day I landed in Canada, I turned on my phone and I got an email from her basically saying, I have a role for you. I have a role that I think is good for you. What do you think? And I said, oh, I don't even know what the role is. You've not mentioned the role. Can we talk about it? In summary, in the week I landed Canada, I got a job offer from her firm.
Wow. Wow.
Mind you, it was still a legal adjacent role, but I thought, you know what? This is a great opportunity. I barely interviewed for this job. I will take it on. In summary, my first week of joining them, they let me know that because I was qualified to practice as an attorney in New York, and they, as a firm, part of what they do is US business immigration, which is basically practicing US law, but from Canada, I could actually work with them as an attorney if I was interested. And I remember I'm like, are you really asking me if I'm interested? I mean, to pause, one reaction I could have had would have been, oh, this is not my area. Why am I trying to do immigration? I've always been doing corporate. But then I thought about it, and I also did speak to my husband, because I talk to my husband a lot about everything, I guess, career, everything, advice. I always joke with him that he's my career coach. So basically, and we were like, look, you can explore, like, this is an opportunity that has come to you without you knowing. What's the worst that can happen? You do it and you don't like it, right? So just try it out. It's a new thing, it's a new area, it's fine. You'd learn. You might have to, I did start from scratch, because I was hired as an attorney, even though I left Nigeria as a senior associate. You might have to start from scratch, but you have experience, you're progression will be quick, etc. So that's how I accepted the offer, and I found myself here. And I mean, the year I got promoted to senior associate, I have, and all of this is, of course, by God, it's just been great, a great and exciting experience that would never have happened if, God didn't arrange that.
Wow. Talk about divine arrangements. Oh my goodness. That's so interesting. God is good. And you actually took the right steps. You did your research, you asked questions, you were proactive. You didn't just sit down saying, oh, maybe this is going to come to me or someone's going to call me. You took the steps. You called, you wrote an email, and you got responses. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you. Okay, so now we are moving to the crux of this interview, which is your story. And I actually want to ask you this question because a lot of us just see the good things. Like, if you hadn't shared your story right now, I wouldn't have known that you took steps, to get to where you are today. So I want you to tell me your story. And when I say story, I mean those challenges you encountered in the past that would have actually altered the course of your career, or should I even say life? But despite those challenges, you decided that I'm not going to let these challenges weigh me down or keep me down. I'm still going to go up. And today you're thriving in your career and in your life as a whole. So can you share some of those challenges? Because so many people don't know about challenges. Successful people, they only just see the Gucci bags and the Fendi's and what have you, not knowing the story behind the glory. So please tell us the story behind the glory. So like maybe one example.
Sure. I'm happy to share, and I'm happy you emphasize the fact that people just see all the nice things and all the glowing things, and they never know like story behind it. And one thing I should say, like you correctly said, is there's always a story behind every. I don't mean to sound philosophical here or motivational. There's a story behind every glory, really. You will see, and I'm going to use myself as an example now, sharing my own story. People will see my resume and say, oh, best graduating students in university, best in corporate law in law school, best class from law school.
Hold on. I need to share the story.
What story?
So the first time that I actually took note of you was at law school, and because of your last name is Olabenjo.
That's true. So we sat each other for bar finals. Yes, I remember.
It was property law, the property law exam we were writing, or maybe criminal, or one of them. And I was still trying to fill up my first booklets, while writing the exam. And then I hear this young lady by my side saying, excuse me, can I have an extra sheet or extra?
Oh my goodness, no.
And I looked at her like, seriously? When I'm still trying to fill up my own booklet?
Oh my goodness.
That was the first time I noticed. I was like, this girl has to be brilliant. She has to be very...
Can you see? That was the impression you had, right? Nobody would have known that the week before.
Yes.
I called my mom. And I was weeping. I just told her, Mommy, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'm tired. And, she encouraged me. But then in the exam, you saw me, I was really writing. But you know that I was crying.
Who is this girl? Like, I really need to know her. That was the first day I marked your face. I marked your name. Like, I need to know this girl. And the second time, which was the first time we officially met, was at Alukano Body for the job interview. That's amazing. So, guys... You need to follow her. Follow TOFUNMI. Follow TOFUNMI. Okay, go ahead with the story.
So, you see my CV, you say, oh, best graduating students, best in corporate law in law school, first class from law school, recognized as legal 500 rising star, blah, blah, right? But you're qualified in Nigeria, New York, and Ontario. But you don't know, like, there's a story behind it, and one of I would say the biggest, one of the, maybe not necessarily biggest, but for me, the most significant challenges I've had over the course of my career was taking the New York bar and failing on my first try. Now I'm coming out and saying I am qualified in New York, but nobody knows this. Not too many people know this part. Unless I tell you, you don't know, right? And I'll be honest, it was not hunky-dory. It wasn't exciting. It was not an exciting event or situation, because before that time, I had failure was something that I would hear of, but I'd never experienced, right?
I can relate.
So it was hard. I remember that day because I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and I picked up my phone and I saw the email saying the results, because the way the New York results come, they send you an email telling you the results are out. So you have to log in somewhere and then check. So I logged in, and immediately I did not see congratulations. I was just like, yeah, I failed. And I remember I just started crying. I was like, I failed the exams. I think I messaged my sister and my friend, and I was like, I failed. I'm so sad. I'm such a failure. I'm so disappointed. I was crying. And frankly, the emotions I felt were, one, first, of shame. I was ashamed because, like I said, I had just graduated from Harvard Law School. I had a first class from law school. I was best graduating student in my class. So in my mind, I'm like, how are you failing? I was so ashamed. I was also angry. I was, I guess, disappointed in myself. Disappointed that I had disappointed my parents and my family, because they were there for me, always asking me, how your exams, okay, have you read, do you need anything? I was also sad that I had wasted their money, because they paid for it, wasted their time, wasted their energy, because they were so supportive emotionally, psychologically. So I had all of these feelings in summary. And to be honest, for the first few days, I didn't even want to talk to anybody. My sister called me, my parents called me, I didn't really want to talk to anybody. I remember my sister Buki first reached out to me, and she basically even ignored the fact that I failed. She was just like, you know what are we going to do now? Let's focus on, what you did wrong. Let's focus on how you're going to do it again. Remember, like, me, do this thing again. And the exams are offered, I think, at least then, they were offered in July and February. The results had come October, because I remember that I was telling God I wanted a birthday present. My birthday's in October. So I know the results came sometime in October. And she was basically saying I was going to do it again in February. I said, me, do it again in February. I was just laughing. So like, yeah, let's just focus. Let's try to figure out how you're going to study, blah, blah, blah. And my parents also called me just to encourage me and reaffirm me and their confidence in me, which was really helpful. But at the time, I was still... and I remember something that at the time was, I would say, profound, that my uncle said. I think it was with my dad, the day my dad called me, and he took the phone and he told me, he said, TOFUNMI, they say life is not a bed of roses. And you need to realize that your life has been rosy all along, right? So this failure that you failed, just see it as a thorn in the roses of your life. And remember that even though thorns are painful, on the rose, they have a purpose.
Right.
And coming from that, my uncle, it was actually quite profound, and it got me thinking, like, look, this is not the end of the world. Obviously, I didn't get to this point immediately, to be frank. My immediate reaction was still to cry and to wallow for about a week, I think. And then after that, I was like, look, this is not the end of the world. Yes, you failed, but there's a reason for this. And so I sat down with my sister. We went through the failure report, because they give you a failure report. We went through the failure report, identified different areas where, I made mistakes, where I could have done better. We also then went through my study plan at the time, and we also identified that there were different ways I could have approached, my studying and even writing the exam and all of that. And so we sat down, we made a new plan. I followed the plan. Of course, it wasn't the easiest thing, because I had to then stay back where I was. At the time, I was still in the Harvard community, which was, again, a blessing in disguise, because the additional, like, I think 5 months I spent around the Harvard community meant, one, I was able to make really good friendships. Two, I was able to focus on my studying. Three, which I always say for me was actually the reason why God made me stay, was that I had the opportunity to be there for someone at a very critical time of her life. She was going to have a major surgery that was urgent, and they were not going to go ahead with the surgery unless there was somebody available to be with her. And at the time, because she was a HLS, they were having exams, so none of her friends in school could be with her. Literally, I was the only one that could be with her. It was a huge responsibility. I was scared, because I literally had to sign off all the consent forms, be there to listen to the doctor, everything. And for me, I still believe that was one of the big reasons why God kept me back there. And of course, we all know the end of the story. By God's grace, I passed the exam second time around, qualified to practice in New York. But really, the biggest lesson for me was that failure is not a bad thing. Because before then, I realized that I actually had an unhealthy relationship with failure. Like, my fear of failure was what drove me to do many things I did, which was, it had good outcomes. I always passed my exams and things, but doing it with the fear of failure was not the right way, because failure is actually not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's just a way to say, stop, reflect. Should you really be doing this thing at all? Should you be doing it a different way? Or should you maybe do something else, which is not a bad thing. So yeah, that's one big
Wow.
fun fact,
You're
actually.
giving us
Nobody has ever
gems.
asked me. Whenever I tell people I'm qualified to practice in New York, nobody has ever asked me, how many times did you write the exam
Did
before
you?
you?
Wow.
Nobody has ever asked me that.
See, from this, you said tongues are painful, but they have a purpose. That is so profound. And failure is not necessarily a bad thing. You have spoken to my heart, deep to my soul this afternoon. I mean, there are so many of us who are still very afraid of failure. I won't lie, I am afraid. I don't ever want to fail, but
I still am sometimes. I still am
yes, I
sometimes.
don't ever want to fail, but I have to think about it. I have to reflect on it. It's really deep. It's really deep. Okay. Your advice to those who are currently looking for ways out of their current challenges. And they are seeing other people in the spotlight, they are seeing every other person making progress but them, and they don't know what to do. So what will be your advice to them?
Sure, I have a few.
Okay.
I would say one thing is to set goals for yourself. And not just set them because it's something that everyone does at the beginning of the year. Use it as sort of like a compass to figure out where you are headed, right? Because there's a lot of distractions in life. You see people doing different things. Somebody saying, today is privacy you should do. Or for example, in law, somebody says privacy you should do. Tomorrow, somebody saying, do criminal law. Somebody saying, do corporate law.
I feel attacked. Jesus.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to attack you. I just said
that. That's okay.
But you sort of, as a person, you need to be true to yourself and say, what do I want to do? Have that goal so that it's your guiding light, it's your compass, right? When you have that goal, you then have, what are the steps to achieving that goal? Not anything altruistic, just practical, measurable steps. What do I need to do? Do I need to read more books? Do I need to put up my hand for this type of work in the office? Do I need to talk to people that are already in the field to figure out how they got there and do what they are doing? Just practical, measurable steps. And the reason is because you want to be able to reflect on those steps from time to time to say, okay, how much of this have I done? How much of this haven't I done? How much of this has been useful to me in moving the needle or moving me closer to achieving what I want to achieve, right? And then you also helps you to decide, okay, do I actually need to change my goals? Do I need to, earlier I said something about life not being linear, right? So do I need to tweak? Do I need to, just redirect a bit? Do I need to, so having them, and for me, it's actually writing it down. Having it written down helps because you can look at it, you can visualize it, and then decide, okay, I'm going to tweak this, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to do this differently. For me, one of the things I've done with career goals is if I want to do something, like I said again earlier, I always look at people who have done it already and I talk to them and I ask them questions. Because for me, experience is always the best teacher. Like, people's experiences, you can always learn from it. You don't have to actually experience it yourself before you learn. So I asked those people, what have you done? What did you do? How did you get here? I see you're in this position. What did you do to get here? How did you, position yourself? What did you have to learn? What did you have to know? How many years did you have to have that experience? Just basically to get to that point. Other thing I would say is never stop learning. Never, ever, ever stop learning. Life is a long lesson, right? And for me, this is not just limited to like work or career, but also to life, right? Career-wise, of course, prioritize your professional development, read books, attend seminars, put up your hand for work in the office, listen to podcasts. But more generally, I would say be open to doing new things. Be open to new ways of doing things. Those are two different things, right? Then also be open to the perspective of others. You can learn from everybody. People that are older than you, your peers and people that are younger than you. Of course, I know there's emphasis on mentorship and learning from people that have done things ahead of you, but there's also a lot to learn from your peers and even people that are younger than you. It helps you and also be open to broadening your horizon. So yes, focus on your career, but know about things outside of your career, anything that interests you, politics, sports, geography, just learn. Other two things or two areas I would say would be networking. Networking is very important. And when people hear networking, and even me, it used to happen to me a lot. When I hear networking, I think of being in a room with a multitude of people and trying to talk to them and let them know you and trying to get their attention. But that's not necessarily what it means, really. At the granular level, networking is just who are the people you know, who are the people you surround yourself with, and again, I'm going to place emphasis on your peers. It is important to network with your peers. Yes, it's important to network with professionals you admire, people who have gone ahead of you and done great things, but networking with your peers, there's a lot of value in just networking with your peers, knowledge you can share with them, knowledge you can gain from them. Network with, again, like I said, professionals you admire, people who have gone ahead of you to do great things, and also network down. So network with people who are younger than you, people who have different views on life than you do, because it helps to make your worldview holistic. That's how I see it. And also it helps you to have like a rich group of people to lean in on for support, for guidance, for mentorship. Okay. Very important.
I have a question for you because I'm very poor at networking, extremely poor.
Sure.
Poor. And a lot of people have told me the same thing you're saying, because I feel like there are so many organizations I would love to work with, but because I don't know how to network, it's very hard for me to get into those organizations. So advise me. And I'm sure there are so many other people like me who would want to hear from you. So if I want to network right now with someone who works in a particular organization, how do I start it?
Okay, so for me, there are a couple of ways I go about it.
Okay.
I use LinkedIn a lot. I would go on LinkedIn. The first thing I'll see is, what do we have in common? What do I have in common with this person? Do I know someone that knows this person? Because LinkedIn will show you your mutual connections, right? So that's the first thing I'll see. Do we have any mutual connections? If I have a mutual connection that I talk to, then my first port of call is to go to the mutual connection and say, see, I see you're connected with this person. I really want to talk to them. Just know what they do, where they work, even if it's just a virtual coffee chat or a virtual phone call, just something brief to talk to them about what you do. That's first step. If I don't know anyone that knows them, I see what else do we have in common. Did we go to the same school? Because LinkedIn also shows you that, right? Did you graduate from the same school? Or do I even know someone that graduated from the school they graduated from? I just try to find something in common, because even if I don't know anyone that knows them, that sort of sets the stage for me reaching out to them, right? So it's cold message on LinkedIn. I would subscribe for LinkedIn Premium if their messaging is blocked. Message them and say, oh, hi, I see you're doing blah, blah, blah. I'm really interested in getting into this space. Please let me know if you have a moment to chat about, what it's like to work in this space and how I can find opportunities. Now, I should warn that not everybody's going to respond. Not everybody's going to respond politely. But you know what I always tell myself? I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? They'll tell me no. Has no ever killed anybody. No has never killed anybody. So I'll chop no and I'll move on. And trust me, it sounds, I'm making it sound easy, but it's not as easy, because rejection and disappointment is painful. At least for me, I find it very painful.
Other avenues to network?
So good question. LinkedIn is the most popular one I use. Recently, what I've tried to do as well is also plug into my local community, because there's so much around us, but it all depends on how we view those things. So for example, I go to church every Sunday, but for the longest time, I just view church as, well, let me just go and worship my God. But what's wrong with meeting people in church? There's nothing wrong with meeting people in church. There's nothing wrong with having a coffee with somebody after church, somebody you've seen in church. And because in my church, they make us say hello to everybody every Sunday, right? So nothing wrong with seeing somebody that I thought I would like to speak with and say, oh, let's have a coffee after church. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm trying to ask them for a job or anything. Sometimes it's maybe me just learning about what they do, which is different from what I do. And that's another, I would say, networking or way to network is to find people that you have things in common with, and try to like join like groups of those types of people. So a specific example that I have is after moving to Canada, obviously, I needed to rebuild my social network all over again.
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned the Harvard Club of Toronto. And I was like, I was a member in Nigeria, but I didn't really take it seriously because I was just like, please, I'm not ready to listen to people talking. They had a few events that were just not convenient. But in Toronto, it was convenient. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to join the club. And what the club does is they put everybody's, whenever we have events, they put everybody's names, all the attendees, what they do, etc. And frankly, I've met a bunch of really exciting people and interesting people there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All the time I needed somebody in a specific profession to talk to. And I basically just pulled up the list of attendees. She was supposed to be at the event. She wasn't. I went to meet the president of the club and I'm like, look, I came wanting to meet this person and she's not here. Can you do an introduction? Literally in a week, I got to talk to her. We spoke about what I needed. My issue was resolved. End of.
Talk about being bold.
I mean, it takes a lot of guts, but to be honest, like people see me and they're like, oh, I talk a lot, I'm chatty, I'm confident, but I always have to sort of psych myself up and remind myself, because my biggest fear is always rejection. And remind myself that, you know what, no matter what, if this person is rude or they say no, it's not going to kill you. You're just going to dust your shoulder off and continue walking.
I would just do a recap of what you just said regarding how to navigate life.
Oh, I actually have one last point, which I think is
okay. I'll let you talk about that before I do the recap. Yes.
Okay. So I think this is actually very important. Personally, I even realized this much later in my career, but I think it's very important to prioritize self-care.
Self-care. Okay.
So it's very easy to get carried away with everything that's going on around us, life, work, just your day-to-day, that we forget to take care of ourselves. And taking care of yourself is, yes, doing nice things for yourselves, going to the spa, blah, blah. But I think there should be more emphasis on creating time to do the things you enjoy and creating time to be there for and to be around the people that truly matter.
Oops.
Right? Because work will come, life will come, but at the end of the day, you know, your wealth is in what are the people you surrounded yourself with. What do you enjoy outside of that work? You'll retire one day, right? You know, and I think it's only somebody who is alive, and not just alive, but you're truly well, that can actually have a good life and a good career.
Amazing. Amazing. So Mrs. Adeyemi just told us steps to take, and she said we have to set goals, be true to yourself, have practical and measurable goals, talk to those who have done it before you, never stop learning, prioritize professional development, be open to new ways of doing things, learn from your peers, even people younger than you are, know things outside your practice area, network. That's one is actually for me, network. And finally, prioritize self-care. That is deep. Okay, to the last question. I actually don't want it to go, but yeah, we have to do this. So do you have any plans to mentor girls or young women in the future? Because this is really about women and young girls. So do you have any plans to mentor them? And if you do have plans, how do you want to go about it?
Okay, actually, I already like mentor a bunch of young women informally, that is.
Okay.
So people come to me for advice, people I've worked with before, people I've met, different ways people introduced to me, or they reach out to me on LinkedIn, or reach out to me online, or emailed me. And I sort of give them guidance, you know, they ask me for my opinion on things and I provide support to them. But formally, I would say I currently mentor 2 young women. And by formally, I mean like, you know, dedicated, consistent, long term, because I've known them for at least 5-6 years, I think.
Wow.
Yes.
Such a long time.
And one of them just graduated from law school, and the other just finished secondary school.
Wow.
The one that just graduated from law school, I met her in her second year. the one that just finished secondary school, I met her in GSS when she was in GSS1. So yeah, that's about 6 years, right?
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah. So I do that, and frankly, I'm super proud of both of them. I find it very, very rewarding to be their mentor, and I even see it as an honor that they chose me, or we found ourselves and decided to be mentor and mentee to each other. Because I'm able to share my knowledge with them, share my perspectives, tell them things that I wish I knew or did when I was their age. And I'm also able to learn a lot from them because generationally, they're in a different generation from me. So there
Yeah.
are things that
Please.
exactly they're Gen Zs. So there
Yeah.
are things that, I see in a particular way and they see differently and they help me to understand,
Yeah.
differently. So yeah, that has been really exciting and fulfilling. Frankly, I'm hoping that I'm able to, continue mentoring many women formally and informally. I haven't quite, and honestly, now I feel like I'm being called out because I actually haven't quite thought of how to achieve that specifically. So maybe this is a note of warning for me to actually go and write down that goal and write down how I plan to achieve it.
Right, right.
But it's something I would like to do more of.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so if anyone wants to reach out to you, how through what medium can they reach out to you? LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook? Like, do you mind?
No, at all. I absolutely don't mind. I mean, most of my social media is locked, so I put it on private just because, yeah.
Okay.
But my LinkedIn is my favorite, and I
Okay.
always check my LinkedIn. So it's a
Okay.
great way to reach me. LinkedIn message.
Right. So I'm gonna put up your LinkedIn name here so they can
Yes,
see and
please.
reach out to you. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yes,
you
please. I'm
very
happy
much
to.
for being here today. Thank you for motivating us, encouraging us with your story. We appreciate you and we really love you. Thank you very much.
Love you
Thank
too,
you.
Moyo. Thank you for hosting me and for having me. Thank you so
So I
much.
hope maybe next year, or if God says sometime later in the year, we can have you again for another session,
Yes, please.
Yeah, because I
Just reach out
actually
to
want this
me.
to be a continuous program, not just a one-off. So
Okay.
we'll be happy to have you again.
Sure. I'll be happy to be back. Just let me know. Say the word and I'm here.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you very much, and I wish
Thank
you all
you.
the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you so
And I
much.
pray things keep going well for you. Thank you so much.
Amen. I pray the same for you too.
Thank you,
Amen.
and I receive it.